Hello, and yes, I'm filming from this angle because of the better lighting. Otherwise, I'd be backlit, and you won't be able to see my face, very well. Let me comb my hair a bit. You kind of caught me in the middle of my lunch breakfast thing. I'm closing on the weekend, so it's better to just wake up around noon than it is to wake up around, I don't know, 7 or 8 in the morning and stay up until midnight. So, yeah, a bit much. So, pants. So, oh, here we are. So, today, on this very special episode of Greg's Life, or as I originally called it, an otaku story, or otaku's journey. Well, I would like to be talking about, and a little bit about myself, being in the 90s. Back in the 90s, I was on a yes. We're going to talk about BoJack Horseman. I never did a review. I think I might have mentioned BoJack Horseman in a previous review, but I've never actually talked about BoJack Horseman before. Now, there's kind of a reason why I haven't reviewed or talked about BoJack Horseman while the series was actually, in production. It's been over for a while now, like a year or two, or something like that. So, a little something about me and shows that I rather shy away from, shall we say. It even started with MASH back in the 90s. Like I said, back in the 90s. Yeah, so, yes. When I used to watch television in the 90s, I'd be sitting in my mom's room back in Rialto, and after school or during summer vacation, I watched a lot of television back then. There was a show called MASH. It was a military or military hospital show. Now, I used to watch 80s and 90s television, which, yes, had guns in it. My God, people were shooting at each other. I used to watch the A-Team. I used to watch stuff that had guns and stuff in it. And people like, violent. It's so violent. And it's like, really? I never felt inspired to go and shoot something up. Like, people keep saying, "Oh, but for the children." My kids shows they all had laser pistols, and people magically managed to survive buildings being fall on them, gassed and drugged on a regular basis. So, trust me, I'm fine. But when MASH would show up in the 90s, I would be like, nope. So every time it would come on, with that song, which is the tune, the melody for, but not the lyrics for, because suicide is painless. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Anyway, so when that song would come up, I'd be like, click, nope, not watching that, because it's military. It has sadness to it. I know it had comedy to it, really. I just knew those had sadness and war and heartache. And me as a little kid, I really didn't want to do that because I was going into elementary school, into middle school. And quite frankly, the mid-90s was not a really good time for me. One, the O.J. Simpson trial was also in full swing. So, yeah. He took away not Saturday morning. After, weekday afternoon cartoons were interrupted by the O.J. Simpson trial. Because the nation wanted to know what the heck happened with really, really bad incompetence. That is, it's because I remember watching that, and I remember thinking to myself, seriously, not that this is at a snail's pace, but for the love of God, like, get it right. And it's like, we have ice cream, we have all these details, but we can't really seem to put the pieces together. Really? Trial of the century here, people, and you couldn't bring your A game. It's like watching Clouseau or some other bungler go through this. Even as a child, I'm like, shouldn't I have something to some sort of degree of something? definitive. Everything was undefinitive. Everything was, well, maybe. Everything was maybe. There was no certainties. It's like, well, there was a this here, but that could be you know, explained away by this. And we're like, so what was the point of all that then? We have no conclusive evidence, Your Honor. Yeah, like a year and a half of this shit. And it's like, just get on with it. But anyway, so other than the Simpson trial, which I was kind of forced to watch because we had adults in the house and they wanted to know what the hell was going on. There was, like I said, MASH and other stuff I shied away from, like Dan Versus, because he seemed like such an angry person. It was trailered as an angry person. I'm like, I don't want to watch a show about some cartoon about an angry guy, and have stuff happen to him. We've already saw stuff happen to, well, kinder characters, and they were still a lot more entertaining. Who clearly didn't deserve getting pianos dropped on them, but those were still better cartoons and did much, much better parodies. Eek the Cat did a Barney parody. That was hilarious. Crossed with not Poltergeist. What's the one with Father Merrick? I forget. Sorry, I'm blanking on that. The possession one with the girl, the head spins. Well, just because I don't have it in my collection doesn't mean I don't remember the title. Not Poltergeist, not Possession. It'll come to me. Sorry, I haven't eaten yet, so let's get some sugar in my system. Maybe that'll help. Point is, so whenever I saw something that didn't look very pleasing, I would, stay away from it. Despite what everyone else would say. The rave reviews, like people say rave reviews about everything. Spider-Man was the #1 movie. Then, like a year later, it was in the $5 bargain bin, at Walmart. I was like, well, so much for the first #1 movie. That went downhill really fast. So, having all that being said, when BoJack Horseman was going to premiere it was being, trailers were showing on it online. I'm like, who's this horse who keeps arguing about Honeydew? Because that would be the trailers, would be him being angry about Honeydew, him getting drunk and staying at a bar all day and all night. It's like, why do I want to care about this guy? It wasn't until like a year or two later, after still hearing about BoJack Horseman still being very good, another season of BoJack Horseman will be coming out, that I finally got to see a bit more, sides to this thing, a couple more facets, and then decided finally, what's all the hubbub about? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I've heard a bit more of good things about this, so why don't I give it a try? So one night after work, I pushed play, and I watched it, and I watched it, and I watched it, and I watched it. I marathoned the whole damn thing in probably like over a weekend or something like that, and it was a very good story, much like MASH. When I finally did give it a good fair handshake or a fair shake, that it's like, oh, this is a really good show. It balances the tragedy and everything negative in life with humor and good storytelling. So BoJack Horseman, it's just, I don't know what else to say that has already been said. It was just so self-reflecting and insightful, hilarious, entertaining, creative. These are all words that have been used before, so it's like I'm not really saying anything new here, but I found it rather enlightening, honestly. And it's really quite poignant, I guess, to show like how life is. Like a really honest to God, a very honest look at life and people, that people are not one thing or another. It's moment by moment basis, what drives them, when are they the most, and how and why are they the most, to be most vulnerable to their best and worst selves, you know. BoJack Horseman isn't just virtuous, doesn't do a nice thing just because, you know, a good or bad thing just because. He does it for various reasons, and it plays to his character. So when he does do something good, that's a very good BoJack Horseman thing to do for BoJack Horseman reasons why he is. For any number of reasons that he could do good or bad. Same as everybody else in the cast. And it wasn't just him. No one here is virtuous. Mr. Peanut Butter. Mr. Peanut Butter and BoJack are very, very similar. But they're like both sides of the same coin almost. Where BoJack hates himself, Mr. Peanut Butter loves himself and loves everything so unconditionally. But much unlike BoJack, he doesn't understand why his marriages keep failing. Like, why does this keep happening? I'm the sliding door adjacent, if you remember, in the first move-in video some years ago. So anyway, having Mr. Peanut Butter show that he's not an altruistic character. He's not this perfect being or this goody good. He tries to be, but he also gets a lot wrong. And why he has three failed marriages and 1 to 2 failed relationships after that is because he's constantly wanting the honeymoon stage of the relationship where everything's new and interesting and you get each other, but when things start to settle and become kind of more normalized, like, okay, well, what else is there in the relationship? It starts to fall apart. He takes things way too literally. He's always the peppy one in the relationship, and that can get a little grating on people, where it's like, you're always happy. It's like, don't you have another mood or another mode? It's like, and he's much like mentally or psychologically like Peter Pan. He doesn't grow up. He doesn't have bad days. He's this, it's all sunshine and rainbows all the time because I look for the positive in everything. And if you watch it, you understand that, yeah, he's always the youngster-minded. He constantly keeps wanting to be in the honeymoon stage of the relationship, thinking that will last, but that's not the case. He keeps falling out of not favor, but out of love of his wives because, well, they grew up. He didn't. So they always kind of find him more passé because it's like he never steps up psychologically to read the room, the situation in the room, or the time in their lives that they find themselves in. So, and we find that more prevalent in Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane. She says something, and he takes it too literally, and he keeps trying too hard to make her feel at home, that this is your place, a place where you can live, And she's all like, well, why are you trying so hard to fulfill said wish, flights of fancy childhood dream, anyway? Because then it makes me feel shitty that you're just here, you're passing fancy, and I don't want that again. My first 2 marriages failed. Now I want this to work. I am trying hard to help make this work, because then I don't want to lose you again. Then it says that Shez shows to himself that these women were never his true love. They never really truly loved each other. These were passing fancies. Um, Jerry Springer back in the 90s, I know, I'm probably going to reference the 90s a lot in this, um, said something like probably the most wisest wisdom of relationships, because these are not relationships or marriages. These are rather long dates. These are passing fancies. These are things that are never meant to last because they can't last. Because obviously, you're never meant to stay together after an initial meeting. The difference between visiting someone and staying and living with someone. Trust me, I know. They're different types of people. They are. They are. So, every character is compelling because they're facets, not just this 1 to 2 note characters. They're 3 to 4 note characters. They're complex and interesting, and everyone's a character. And there's Todd, the brain dead idiot, who lucks into like peeking in the brain type of scenarios where, I have this insane idea. Mr. Peanut Butter listens, gets money behind it, and then it makes millions. So Todd goes from this bum on a couch for 4 years to a guy with millions of dollars to broke again 5 minutes later because he gave it all to the waitress as a tip. Yeah, I know it's stupid. I kind of wish they didn't do that either. But anyway, he's back on top again. So he goes from nothing to everything to nothing again for 5 minutes and then back to something and kind of goes back and forth between very successful to minorly successful. But he always stays successful. And one of the brightest things that Todd's ever done, I know it's not like spoiler talk, for being a bit of a brain dead idiot, is the fact that he realized early on that he can't stay with Bojack. He stayed with Bojack for 4 years. He never got anywhere. Until Bojack had to betray him hard in order to actually force him to go out there and fend for himself. Because he can't stay here. So... And it's really raw. I mean, he just screws him over, epically. Todd gets some minor success. Some people start listening to his crazy ideas, and he might leave because he becomes a success. Can't have that. So Bojack tanks that. And then Bojack sleeps with the girl that Todd likes or loves or has respect for, but is not romantically or sexually attracted to her because he's asexual. And and so but he still respects her, but he finds that out. It's like, oh, betrayal. You're not supposed to sleep with the girls I like. It's like sleeping with your best friend's sister or something like that. It's just a sense of like, you don't do that. So Todd had to leave, and when they've been beat up again, like he says, Bojack, we haven't seen each other for like over a year, and that's really good for me because I'm actually not, I'm not being pulled into your bullshit or being affected by you. So my life has been good or bad by his own hand and whatever. So he kind of prefers it that way. So that kind of carries on throughout the rest of the series. But they do meet up and have good, not personal relations, but like professional relations. Like Todd being a gopher, but still will talk and say hi and chill with Bojack, but doesn't stay with him and doesn't really act like his buddy, but it's more of a casual, oh, hey, Bojack, what's up? And then be off again. Even by the end of the series, Todd says the same thing. All right, yes, it's good to see you, but I'm still trying to keep my distance from you. And so, no, you're not welcome to this party. So Todd still sticks to that because it seems to be a good general rule of thumb for him for his life now, or life choices. Even though he goes through all this bullshit by himself, he doesn't need Bojack for his antics or weird life. But also what I think is one of the things the show has done with Todd when they decided to make him asexual is actually make that part of the plot. Actually give that something to actually have a storyline around. Because normally when they have a character representation of any orientation, they don't do anything with them. It's like, oh, hey, he's a painter. All right. Does that have any bearing on the plot? Nope. Is he going to paint anything? Nope. Then what was the point of bringing up that he's a painter? Just so you know, he's a painter. So we have painters in our stories. Who doesn't paint? Right. So just so you know, he's there. To what avail? Like, what's the damn point of it? It's like, but with Todd, I actually like this because unlike well, is it not Kubo, the other one, the Hollow, and Stranger Things, and various others. It's like, yeah, he's gay. Okay, are you gonna do anything with that? No, just so you know he's there. They actually say, well, Todd is asexual, and they show him understanding that, coming to terms with it, and utilizing it in a story. Hey, there you go. It wasn't too hard, was it? So you have this character talk about it and get into a asexuals anonymous or whatever meeting or whatever, a meeting. And so he's there and he's talking to others, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of, you know, they say like this is awkward. People are falling. You naturally extends to fall in love with somebody, but you don't really feel like you really love anyone. You can be in relationships and dynamics with people, but it doesn't look or feel like the same thing like others do. So you kind of feel like you're missing out on something, and they all express all these things and these general emotions. But it's like, yes, good. And they show him and people trying to have relationships. The people trying to have relationships in this show is really done rather well because it shows people trying to achieve something, failing at things, awkwardly failing at things, or just awkwardly, just going through life. And all these characters, numerous characters, Princess Carolyn, everyone, the main cast and then the peripheral cast, everyone is shown to be having more than just a simple no character. Everyone has peaks and valleys and this and that, and understanding that life is horrifically complicated and no one is any one particular thing, and here's why. So BoJack Horseman, this show really showcases the human condition very, very well, and what, especially in the setting of L.A. or Hollywood. I love that. It says, who is still a... BoJack sees the D missing, goes strange. No, it says weird. Weirder, sees it in his poll. Goes, why would I steal a giant D? Ding dong, it's Diane. Damn. So, in the backdrop of Hollywood, we see how success, not success, but the Hollywood machine, the organism that is Hollywood, how it takes starry-eyed dreamers, and you would have to navigate that quite well and understand people are going to manipulate the fuck out of you to get what they want. BoJack gets manipulated and turning against his, at the time, the showrunner's writer guy, then he does the same thing to his hairstylist. Basically tells her to compromise and quit, for the sake of the show. So BoJack betrays his friend for the sake of the show. So you see these things kind of continuing on of betrayal and all that. And you see, like, Sarah Lynn, his co-star, the little girl, like what happened to her and how everyone's addicted to drugs and where does that lead you. And it takes an honest, no punches are pulled here, kids. There's no magical we solve all our problems in 20 minutes crap, which I like finally, because this is all planned and stretched out. Everything here feels proper with each storyline, tragedy, success, fail. All the plot elements are evenly spaced because it doesn't just really end and then my life's good. I got over my problems and my life's good. It's like there's always that part of you who will always be, the worst parts of yourself will always still be there. As well as the best parts, and your struggle to try and to do the right thing and best thing for you and everyone around you. And you're not always going to succeed, because you're afraid. BoJack doesn't want to be alone. That's why he sabotaged Todd. He wants Todd to be with him. He wants someone in his life. And it goes on from there. People's ideals of things. There's always so much to talk about on that show. Success, failure, past success, current success, future success. Bojack, always thinks he's on the out. He's like, well, I want to be and make it big. For 10 years throughout the 90s, he was on Horsing Around. And then in the odds, he did the Bojack Horseman show. And then he did, what was it? Secretariat or something like that. And then he did, what was it? I just saw it. I just saw the episode that was the script he was reading. The one where he's the detective. You know, that the second season ended not because of BoJack, but because Todd's sex robot thing did a thing, so therefore the show was canceled. So it's like, well, okay, well, that was more of a Todd thing. But he had these successes, and they were always big successes. And then he did the Horny Unicorn, and then he's doing a production in the prison. So he's always had successes after that. So he kept thinking, well, I'm a has been, I'm a has been, I'm a has been, until it's like, oh, the next thing's coming in, and people love it. And people are always questioning corporate, corporate meddling, lots of corporate meddling. So it takes a very, very straight look, honest look at, behind the scenes, the process. What do actors feel? How, they're the human side of things, their strengths, their fears, determination, chronic, not failure, but, benders, like what happens when someone spirals out of control, when each time you spiral, it's like, yeah, people spiral and it gets bad. And so you see all this stuff going on, and life goes on. It spans from the late 80s, like 88, 89, to throughout the 90s, to the aughts, and to the teens. And so, and it kind of makes fun of that. And it says, like, here's a song from the mid-90s, so it's the 90s. They have that playing on the radio. So, anyway, so when they make references to Disney and Pixar and actors, they just kind of like change the names a little bit, and show how people are trying to make money, make a a living, even if they lie their asses off. People are willing to do it. Central cast, by the way. But a lot of lies and betrayals and people dying from various diseases such as cancer and cocaine overdose and all that fun stuff. So, yeah. So much like MASH, I was rather glad that I watched that show, and I watched it again, and and it feels very human to watch it. You always get something else out of it. You always feel like you're getting something out of it each time you watch it. Because you kind of sympathize, because you get it on the layers. You get layers and layers and layers. Why BoJack hates himself so much, and there are days like that where you feel the exact same thing, like you're going through things. You doubt yourself, you hate yourself, you're bored out of your mind, you're wondering, what the hell am I doing with my life? You feel depressed. You feel depressed that you're getting older. I'm turning 41 next month. And this is my kingdom. So yeah, it's very relatable at times. Of course, I've never worked in Hollywood, so all that behind the scenes stuff, I could only imagine that would be, fairly accurate. Corporate meddling, the backstabbing, the pressured into backstabbing because for the 200 people, do it for the 200 people who need this job. For the sake of the show, they said. In the end, BoJack is no more or less off than he was when he started. And it's like, you make the bed, you sleep in the bed you make. It was basically the final premise or whatever. The last line of the show was BoJack basically stating, yeah, you make your own bed. It's the way life is. You make the mess, Now you have to deal with it. You befall by your own hand, And but yeah, it shows everyone getting on. If you try hard enough and don't give up, eventually you find at least to a better place. If not succeed, at least you get to a slightly better place. Mr. Peanut Butter was okay. Todd's a success. The Princess Caroline, I think, had a boyfriend. No, she was getting married. Right? She was getting married. That's why Bojack was out, was to go to her wedding. And Bojack was alive, and he's putting on productions. Uh, the Horny Unicorn that he did just before going in was a hit. People like it. So now he's being offered roles. Like, people are saying, call me. It's like people are still interested in hiring him for projects. Even while he's still in prison for another 2 months. He's out just for the wedding. But Princess Caroline took him to the Hobnob business wedding party. So Bojack can still get connections there. So Bojack's okay. And Diane is still Diane. She's still just looking for a peace of mind. She's in love with her buffalo boyfriend. I think she still was. And she's gained a lot of weight. She's probably like 40 at this point, I think. At least in her late 30s. And doing okay. Much like, what's her name from, I forget her name, Karen from Better Call Saul. She's okay too, like she's alright. She's at a place where everything's okay. And that's where the show leaves off. It's been one crazy ride for about 5 or 6 seasons. And much like life, you go through a lot. At times it's perfectly boring, at other times it was annoying and not thrilling, but intense as hell. I've had currently going through a bit of a crisis myself. Tax season. So, but I am fairly confident I could get through this all by myself. Because I make enough money, so by the time, it's time to do things, I'll be able to pay that off. And then I'll start from zero. So I'll have 2.5 months to get enough money together to have one good day off. Yeah. So, pray for me, people. Pray for me. Or if you want, you can donate to, well, I showed my my Bitcoin account thing on a previous video. I gotta get that up there somehow. But anyway, if you want, you can subscribe, and tell your friends about me. And then if I get enough likes and subscriptions, then I'll get the donation heart at that heart-shaped thing. Heart-shaped icon with the money in it. And then you too can help donate to the cause that is this otaku's life. Well, it ain't over yet, kids. I still got miles to go. Alright, see you next time. Bye.